games that matter, plus this news. A source told our Adam Schefter that the Saints are working out free agent wide receiver Antonio Brown. More on this story in a moment. The Falcons announced the team will retain head coach Dan Quinn and GM Thomas Dimitroff despite a second straight losing season. More on this and all the coaching news coming up. Plus, all eyes on Dak Prescott at Cowboys practice as he continues to nurse his injured throwing shoulder. We have a report from Ed Werder. That's just a bit on NFL Live. And we are looking forward to the final Sunday of the regular season with so much at stake. We've got you covered. Field Yates, Damien Woody, Rob Ninkovich. I'm Susie Kolber. But before we get to the games, just a brief detour with an eye on next season. Adam Schefter with news on free agent wide receiver Antonio Brown. What can you tell us about his visit to the Saints?
Susie, he's visiting with New Orleans today, working out with a group of about 6 different wide receivers. I think the Saints want to be prepared in the event that somehow Antonio Brown were cleared for the postseason. But I still think that that's unlikely when you talk to people around the league who believe that the league's investigation is ongoing. They don't know how close it is to ending. If the Saints were to sign him today, hypothetically, he probably would wind up on the commissioner's exempt list. And then we don't know when the NFL is going to wrap up its investigation. There could be further discipline that awaits. So it's not like Antonio Brown is playing on Sunday. I think the Saints are reaching and hoping that somehow, some way, maybe he could contribute in the postseason, although other people think that that's still a long shot by any stretch of the imagination. And this seems like it's a workout to be prepared, to be ready, and to have an eye on the future for the 2020 season. But the Saints like to take big swings. They took one last year with Dez Bryant, who ruptured his Achilles the first week of practice with the Saints. And now they're taking a look at Antonio Brown again today.
Adam, I know you said it, but just to reiterate, the chances of him playing for this team in the playoffs, slim, right?
I think in the eyes of people around the league, that is correct, Susie. They believe that for the league to clear him at this point, if there were no further discipline, if there were no commissioner exempt list, it would almost be unprecedented. Now, Antonio Brown would argue that he's done nothing wrong, and he's continued to state his case. Others would disagree, but it's up to the league to make a determination. And the league right now doesn't look like it's close to a decision, and we don't know what the decision will be. We don't know what will come out of the investigation. So there are so many things that have to go AB's way to think that he would be playing at some point this season. It's unrealistic to expect that. But the Saints are doing, in the words of one source today, their due diligence. And that's exactly what this is about, with an eye on the future.
And making news today. Adam, back in a bit for coaching news as we head toward the critical final Sunday. A little bit more on AB with a reminder of his tumultuous timeline. Back on September 7th, he was released by the Raiders and then 2 days later signed a contract with the Patriots. His former trainer, Brittany Taylor, filed a civil lawsuit accusing Brown of sexual assault. It was later reported a second incident involving sexual misconduct occurred. On September 19th, Brown reportedly sent threatening texts to the second woman accusing him of sexual misconduct. He was released by the Patriots a day later after playing one game. Rob,
yes.
Your impressions of this whole thing, and really, I mean, that it is making headlines today.
Yeah, look, it's just a workout. Do you know how many guys go into other teams and have workouts? And there were 6 other guys there. They want to just have an evaluation of multiple positions, multiple players. And if you're the Saints, after just having one workout, is this worth the media circus that would bring and come to your team after they've only lost 3 games and they're in the playoff hunt? It seems unnecessary at this point right now. And I think just doing the workout and having that reaction that we've all seen, plus doesn't help that AB's Instagramming stories of him actually going to a workout, which I haven't seen anyone do a workout and actually take a picture of the waiver that you signed and put it out there for the world to see. So I don't think that helps his case for the Saints to say, okay, he's going to be worth that. Granted, we don't know what's going to happen with his suspension status. And then also you think about contract status. If you're the Saints, like, what are you willing to give a guy that you don't know exactly how much time he's going to be on the field for you? It's all up in the air right now. So you see this photo. If you're the Saints, you're just like, all right, back to what business? You're just working out. You're not signed. You're not playing football. You're just working out. So I just think it's
being relevant.
It's a little too much too soon. And if you're the Saints, you don't want that distraction right now.
Boy, talent sure does give you a lot of opportunities, doesn't it? I mean,
Sure does.
it gives you a lot of opportunities. And listen, the New Orleans Saints are 12-3 right now without Antonio Brown. They're doing pretty well, if you know, in my opinion. So I understand the Saints are doing their due diligence, but would I want to take a chance on that? Bringing all of that into the locker room? And listen, I think sometimes it can get overblown about distraction. But I mean, literally, you're talking about you see how we're like working ourselves in a tizzy over a guy who's doing a workout. And I don't know, do you really want that into your organization?
Just a workout.
Yeah,
it is just a workout. I will say this from the Saints' standpoint. I actually think this is relatively no lose for them. Basically, all they have committed themselves to is a flight, maybe a couple of meals, and perhaps a new pair of gloves if Antonio didn't bring his own. What they have done is they've planted some seeds. In the event that Antonio Brown's situation is eventually cleared, and it has to be cleared at some point, there has to be some resolution at some point. What the Saints have done is they have said, listen to Antonio, we have established line of communication. We've checked you out physically, and really, the questions aren't physical with Antonio Brown. You know what you're getting here. We're talking about arguably still the most talented wide receiver, other than perhaps Michael Thomas of the Saints currently. That if and when Antonio Brown's situation is resolved and there's clarity on what his football future is, you've at least opened the pipeline of communication. And for them, they can say, hey, Antonio, when others were not looking at you, were paying you no mind, we at least wanted you to know that you were on our radar as a player that we are interested in. Ultimately, Antonio Brown's situation will probably come down to, you know, who wants to sign him and who's willing to pay the most amount of money. But at the very least for New Orleans, they've done them like there is zero risk involved here for them, other than us talking about it on NFL Live for a couple of segments. That's basically all this turns into from their standpoint.
I don't know, maybe tossing them in a dumpster fire or something.
Well, you never know when that could happen.
Later.
That's coming.
That's coming later.
Yeah.
And now, the games. The battle for the NFC East is down to the Eagles and the Cowboys in Week 17. Philadelphia can clinch the NFC East with a win over the Giants. Dallas will have to beat Washington and have the Eagles lose. Here's Ed Werder with the latest on the Cowboys and their banged-up quarterback.
Yeah, Susie, the Cowboys officially listed Dak Prescott as not participating in practice yesterday, a historic designation since the quarterback's never missed a practice in 4 NFL seasons. But the reality is that he's as involved physically this week as he was a week ago, and the Cowboys seem to have almost no doubt that Prescott's going to make his 64th consecutive start against the Redskins in a game they have to win to have any chance at the playoffs. Jason Garrett said this morning that if the quarterback practices today, he won't do very much, so expect him to be listed as limited. Garrett said Prescott's on a similar path from a week ago, and he's in what Garrett described as a good frame of mind for playing in the game. For his part, Prescott said his sprained throwing shoulder is improving. He intends to attempt passes today or tomorrow for the first time since finishing the game against the Eagles. And Prescott indicated that he took a pain-killing injection before that game and again at halftime, and whether that's necessary again for Sunday remains to be determined. Susie, a final note. Starting left tackle Tyron Smith continues to have problems with a back injury. His status remains.
Games that matter, plus this news. A source told our Adam Schefter that the Saints are working out free agent wide receiver Antonio Brown. More on this story in a moment. The Falcons announced the team will retain head coach Dan Quinn and GM Thomas Dimitroff despite a second straight losing season. More on this and all the coaching news coming up. Plus, all eyes on Dak Prescott at Cowboys practice as he continues to nurse his injured throwing shoulder. We have a report from Ed Werder. That's just a bit on NFL Live. And we are looking forward to the final Sunday of the regular season with so much at stake. We've got you covered. Field Yates, Damian Woody, Rob Ninkovich. I'm Susie Kalber. But before we get to the games, just a brief detour with an eye on next season. Adam Schefter with news on free agent wide receiver Antonio Brown. What can you tell us about his visit to the Saints?
Susie, he's visiting with New Orleans today, working out with a group of about 6 different wide receivers. I think the Saints want to be prepared in the event that somehow Antonio Brown were cleared for the postseason. But I still think that that's unlikely when you talk to people around the league who believe that the league's investigation is ongoing. They don't know how close it is to ending. If the Saints were to sign him today, hypothetically, he probably would wind up on the commissioner's exempt list. And then we don't know when the NFL is going to wrap up its investigation. There could be further discipline that awaits. So it's not like Antonio Brown is playing on Sunday. I think the Saints are reaching and hoping that somehow, some way, maybe he could contribute in the postseason, although